Today's lesson is 6.4 bar graphs. Now this lesson is not going to be about how to use bar graphs, it's going to be about making bar graphs. You can look at another video, the other video that's posted about bar graphs if you want to look at how to read bar graphs. But today, this lesson is just going to focus on how to make bar graphs. So what we're going to do is we're going to use bar graphs to compare different pieces of data, and it's a good way to visually see how much of one thing is and how much of another thing. So the first thing we need to make a bar graph is we need a piece of data. So the first piece of data we're going to use is about how much jobs pay. So the different jobs we're going to look at is a cat wrangler, they make $12 an hour. A sneeze wiper makes $10 an hour. A rat sniffer makes $15 an hour, and a cow whisperer makes $24 an hour. So if we want to make a chart out of this that makes it easier to see, I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves a little L. Oops, that's not very straight. Make sure it's straight, otherwise it's not going to be good. I'm going to make an L. That's for our bar. Now, we need to figure out what is going to be going up the side, what's going to be down at the bottom. Usually what we're going to have is we're going to have our information at the bottom. So at the bottom we're going to put, in this one, jobs, because that is one of these pieces of information. So job, and we can erase that S. The job is going to be on the bottom, and we're going to break those in and over here, and then going up the side we're going to have the other piece of information, which is dollars per hour. So it's going to say dollar per hour. Now what we're going to have to do is put, let's see, there's four different jobs. So we're going to have the cat wrangler, the sneeze wiper, the rat sniffer, and the cow whisperer. I'm abbreviating them because I don't have a lot of room to write. So those are my four different jobs, and I'm going to have them on the bottom because they go with this piece of data, the job. So then in this other one we have dollar per hour. But before we start making our bars, we need to decide what interval goes up the side. We're going to do little tick marks going up the side like this. But what we need to decide is what are we going to use. So what interval can I make for each of these tick marks? Now, usually we'll make the tick marks afterwards, but what's a decent interval? Our lowest number is 10 and our highest number is 24. We could do a couple things here. We're not going to want to go by ones, because if we went by ones, I'm going to give you a little mini one over here. If we went by ones, that would be a mess, wouldn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a different interval. Now, I think it makes most sense to use easy intervals. So the next one I would consider would be maybe 5, 10, 25, 50, or 100. Now obviously, all these numbers are far below 100, so I'm not going to count by hundreds. And all of them are far lower than 50, so I'm not going to go by 50s. And all of them are below 25, so I'm not going to go by 25s. Now, if I could either do 5 or 10. Depending on how accurate I want to be. Now, since if I was counting up, if I used 5s, I could go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and I'd be able to easily fit all these numbers in there. If I did 10 on this graph, I would do 10, 20, 30, and then the rest of my bar graph would be wasted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 5s, because 5 is an easy number and it'll be able to distinguish between the different ones. So I'm going to go by 5s. So the bottom would be 0, so the first one would be 5, then 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. So now now we get to the easiest part. All I have to do is plot them. So a cat, I look over here, cat wranglers were $12 an hour. I don't have $12 on here, but we know that $12 is a little bit more than 10, and it's 2 more than 10 and 3 less than 15, so it's going to be right about there. So I'm just going to make a bar right there. You can color it in if you like. And then I'm going to look at sneeze wipers. They make exactly 10, so that's easy. I'm just going to match that along with that 10 line. What I can do is I can take a little pencil like that on my paper and just kind of, or a ruler or something if I want to be real particular. So I'm going to try and undo these little dots here for you. Get them out of the way. Get out of here. So then I'm going to shade that in. Oh, oh no. No, 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 no more. It got caught. It wasn't catching up to me. It went in reverse. Okay, I'm going to redo that cat one. Then I'm going to do the sneeze wiper. It's exactly at 10. So then I'm going to look at the rat sniffer. That's exactly at 15. And then the last one is the cow whisperer. That's at 24. So I go all the way up to, it's just going to be just a little lower than 25. So there's a good representation of those jobs. So you can look at that bar graph and you can see that the cow, visually you can tell that the cow makes the most money. And visually you can see that the sneeze wiper makes the least amount of money. And what you can do, if you're very particular, is you can use that to create sentences about it. For example, you could say the rat sniffer makes more than the sneeze wiper. You can just base that off of here. So that's all you have to do. So write this down in your notes. The most important steps to making a bar graph is, number one, you need to find out the two pieces of info and label on the L. And remember, that would be, when we did this L right here, the two pieces of information were the dollars per hour and the job. Then the second thing we're going to do is figure out the scale or the interval. And in this one, we figured out we should use 5s. And then all we have to do, 3, is fill in info. So use those notes here to help me. I'm going to give you one more I'm going to give you one more table, and I want you to draw a bar graph with me. So the 2 pieces of information in this table that we're going to have is, we're talking about the class and the grade. And we'll say it's, let's say it's Mo Fellini's grades. So this part doesn't matter. But these are his grades in the 3 different classes. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a chart. So with me, go ahead and make your L. Make sure it's nice and straight. Do this on your notebook. Now, I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to have you pause. What I want you to do is I want you to label each side of the bar right now. Pause and go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to label the bottom, because that's where my bars are going to come from. I'm going to label it subjects or class. Either way. Subject, actually, since I put class on the thing, I should actually put that on this. It should be class. And then on this one, it'll say grade. And it's measured in percent. I forgot to include that. Okay, now the next thing I want you to do is I want you to figure out what should be what should be your interval or scale going up the side over here, going up the side. So I want you to pause and create your interval. Okay, what I would pick here is, since your lowest one is 65 and your highest one is 98, 98 is really close to 100, and 100% would be the most, I would pick probably tens. And so what I would probably do is go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, oops. See, I didn't give myself enough room. I'm going to go a little closer. So it would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and that one, nicely, would be 100. So I would use tens. And another thing that you can do when you're making these charts, since the number starts at 65, one thing you could do is you could start the bottom of your graph at 65, or at 60, since I chose tens. So one thing you could do, and what I'm going to do, is I'm going to say this one, the first one is going to be 60, 70, 80, 90, and then 100. That's what I would do. And the reason I would do that is because 65 is my lowest grade. So I wouldn't need to go below 60. It would still be okay if I wanted to also do it the other way. If I want to just go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, it would still be okay. It would just be a little bit harder to read. So right now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So now the next thing I want you to do is make the bar graph, or finish the bar graph with the subjects being put down here. Pause. Okay, so the first thing is math, and that's 98. So I'm going to go all the way up really close to 100. Then the next one is social studies. Notice I'm doing a different color. That's just so it's easier for me to see. The next one is reading. And that's an 89, so I'm going to go just below the 90. So there's my chart for that. It might actually look more accurate if you went from 0 to 100. You could also do that. We're going to talk about misleading charts, because in this chart you might be misled to think that your reading grade is like 5 times as good as your social studies grade. Well, that's not actually true. But for this one, it works, because this one is 65, this one is 89, and this one is 98. So hopefully you know a little bit more about how to make a bar graph. What I want you to do now, I'm just going to give you the information, and I want you to create a bar graph for tomorrow. So the information that I want you to use for tomorrow's bar graph is this. It's going to be the day and how many burrito references I made. And the one last thing that I forgot to tell you during those things is at the top of each of our bar graphs we need to have a title. And in this one, your title is going to be the same thing as my information title. It's going to be Mr. Knight's burrito references. So I want you to take this information and I want you to create a bar graph out of it. Okay, see you tomorrow.